The mic? No, I found a good one. Okay. सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। तप्तकञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधा वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। ॐ जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरः जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरः आर्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वरात् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये ने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मप्रोजितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परेरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुभिस्तक्षणात्
Galitam valam shukamukharamrita dravasamyutam Kat abhuntasa yutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam Gavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka Rasika bhuvi bhavuka. Okay, do a short budget. Nandalala yadu nandalala Nandalala yadu nandalala Nandalala yadu nandalala La yadu nandalala Vrindavana govindalala Vrindavana govindalala Vrindavana govindalala Vindalala Radha Lola Nandalala Radha Lola Nandalala Radha Madhava Nandalala Madhava Nandalala Radha Madhava Nandalala Nandalala yadu nandalala Nandalala yadu nandalala Vrindavana govindalala Lavana govindalala Vrindavana govindalala Vrindavana Yashoda Bala Nandalala Da Bala Nandalala Yashoda Bala Nandalala Yadukula Tilaka Nandalala Yadukula Tilaka Lala Yadukula Tilaka Nandalala Nandalala Yadu Nandalala Nandalala Yadu Nandalala Vrindavana Govindalala Navana Govindalala Vrindavana Govindalala 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 Shri Vrindavana Vihari Lala Ki Jai Shri Satgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. So, last time we had finished by seeing Bhagavan's Leela with a Gasur, Asur in the form of a python, and python is called Ajagara, the one who can swallow something as large as a goat. Goat, Ajaha, right? Ajaha. But Ajaha also means unborn, like the first name of Gurudev's names, yeah, the unborn one. So nothing can swallow that which is unborn, because it is not a substance to be devoured, right? Now, so a couple added points that Swami Jyotirmayanandaji, I'll show this book to you all later, that this Ajagara Of course, he represents sin also. But see, even sin, what does that come from? From thinking I'm the body, that I'm the limited jiva, right? So he says this ajagara is, the two jaws, I-ness and minus, and he says that tongue, slithery tongue, is of that ajagara. The pleasures that, of course, the simple pleasures are part of life, and to be appreciated. But even the Bible says the road to destruction is wide. And so that wide mouth and tongue of that ajagara. Ajagara. And he says this ajagara is actually devouring and spitting back out, devouring and spitting back out life after life, those who are not recognizing what is the real ajaha, the real unborn. And so when Krishna, entered into his mouth, after the cowherd boys had already gone before him, because they were able to discern between, they're working, they weren't able to discern what was the real and the unreal. So, but at least they had the faith in Sri Krishna. So they thought, even if there's something that goes wrong, our Krishna will save us. And so when he finally swallowed Bhagavan, and Sri Krishna became like that, choked his throat because he became bigger and bigger. You were here last time? Were you here? No. Okay. Well, I'm just giving yeah. But the python couldn't breathe anymore, and finally, his prana goes out the top from his sahasra. So Bhagavan actually liberated even the python, Aghasur. Why? Because even sin, or what do we call papa, adharma, is based on, the substratum of all is that which is eternal, changeless, infinite. And another beautiful thing he says, what is that I wanted to mention? It'll come to me, or maybe let me just look back for a second. There's something I want else. Beautiful thing he said. That just as when the feet of Sri Krishna entered into the mouth of Aghasur, and Aghasur was totally liberated, because in the end, when his prana, his soul goes out, and it shimmers in the air for some time, and then it merges in Sri Krishna. So there's no separation between Atma and Brahman. But Swami Jyotirmananda says that just like Sri Krishna's feet, when he entered Aghasura, liberated him, he says, even by thinking of God, of Sri Krishna, he's entering our mind. So what to speak of, So he liberates us just by even thinking of him. Because that's him entering, our heart and mind. So, beautiful story. And we saw that that Shukadev said at the end that, but this story, the cowherd boys didn't tell their families until a year later. Why? Or how is that? How is that possible? Shukadev was asking. How is it possible that, and when they told it to their families, it was as if it was that day. They felt it was that day. Why? It's very strange. So now, Shukadev says, when King Parikshit asks him this question, Shukadev first says, he says, you're asking the right thing, but then he goes into samadhi because just the very thought of that Supreme Being, all his senses and mind got completely absorbed in samadhi of thinking of Sri Krishna. And now, when he comes out, he says that you're asking the right question because the real purpose of our powers of speech and hearing and seeing and thinking are to be dedicated to the Lord. And then he says, with faith and attention, O king, now I will tell you a great secret. And he says that after having rescued the boys and the calves from the mouth of death, the Lord brought them, led them down to the banks of the Yamuna River. And he was so pleased with the beauty of the river. And he said, oh, friends, come on, let's sit down and have our lunch here together on the sandy banks of Yamunaji. And the whole river was full of blossoms, of lotuses, and the fragrance was wafting over the river, attracting bees and the birds, and all that was reverberating amidst the foliage, the verdure of the forest. And he said, let us sit here and take our lunch together and let the calves drink water and graze about here. And so all the Gopa boys, crowded around Sri Krishna in various circles, several circles around him, like we used to do around Gurudev or Guruji, I always think of that, it's just like this, and everyone would just look at him. They couldn't take their eyes off of Sri Krishna. And Shukadev says it was like Sri Krishna was with the pericarp, the middle of the lotus, and then all the petals, everything's beautiful, no? They looked like the petals of a lotus arranged around its pericarp. And they ate off of flower petals, off of stones, and, Sri Krishna didn't, the other Swamiji, he says, Krishna didn't take any notice of they weren't Brahmins, right? They were Vaishyas. So they didn't take any notice with the distinction between who should eat from what plate and this and that. And Sri Krishna would even eat off their plates, And they would eat off each other's. And so there was no distinction between any of the Gopas, And that's love, And they were all joking with each other. And Sri Krishna was telling jokes and making them laugh. And they were all just laughing together and enjoying their time. They would eat, fruits and eat off of these stones and even tree barks, he says. And Shukadev says, imagine the sight of him to whom all the offerings of yajnas are made, sitting in boyish glee to take his food amidst his companions. And with his flute stuck in his waist, and a rice ball, and pickle, and yogurt in his left hand, and then he would take, eat some, like that. And he sat in the midst of his friends, cracking jokes and making them laugh as the celestials looked on. Now, as they were enjoying their lunch together, then the Gopas for a long time had their just attention completely on Sri Krishna. And then the boys happened to look around and they saw that their calves had wandered off. And here and this is their livelihood, and they're responsible for. And the moment their attention went from Krishna to the calves, see, as soon as the attention went from anyone, that's when the trouble happened. Right? So Sri Krishna saw their, worry And he said, friends, you continue your meal and I'll go look for the calves. Just like Rama said. Sri Rama said this. He did. You stay here. I'll go get the deer, right? And so saying, Sri Krishna, with the ball of rice still in his left hand, went about searching for the calves. We'll see the meaning of that later. Oh, everything has such a beautiful meaning. What had happened is, so first Sri Krishna goes and looks all around in these different groves. He can't find the calves, apparently. And then he comes back. He's going to tell the gopas, I can't find them. But lo and behold, he comes there, and all the cowherd boys are gone. And then it says it dawned on him, of course. We take that with a grain of salt. Or a grain of yogurt, whatever. A grain of pickle. Okay. And he understood that this was the play or the trickery of Brahmaji. See, Brahmaji, as we know from Tattvabodh, is the deity. Who can see anyway? So Brahmaji, actually I can see you better though with these, so these are good too. I can see good enough. Okay, so Brahmaji is the deity or presiding deity of mind and intellect. And our mind and intellect, because the mind and intellect can imagine, it can create, right? Create even science and technology and all these things. And we can, as we can see in cultures, in societies, where we get deluded by our own power to create or to invent, As Guruji used to say, with science, it's okay. Science invents and is very fast at creating something new, but doesn't look at the consequences, how this should be used in a positive, beneficial way for it. It's just more. So we'll see more about that. But keep that in mind as we see this Leela. So remember, Brahmaji, even before Bhagavan was born, or appeared, he had prayed, right, to Mahavishnu on the ocean of milk, right, to come and deliver the world from the tyrants and adharma. But still, the mind can get. Yeah, Guruji, another thing he used to say, it's like when if we're staying at a hotel and we need to get up early next morning for a flight, and we put in a thing at the desk for a wake-up call early in the morning. But then when that wake-up call comes, it's, oh, no, slam the phone or what. You don't want to hear it, right? He said. So sometimes we want something or pray for something, but then, when it comes in a certain way or in a way I didn't expect or want, then I don't want that wake-up call. So anyway, all right. So Brahmaji, so Bhagavan, when he understood that this was Brahmaji's trick, in order to give joy to all, to the cowherds, to the calves, to the mother cows, to the mothers of the children, and even to Brahmaji, he assumed the form of all those calves and cowherd boys that were missing. So see, Brahmaji had taken them away and put them in a cave in a very, very deep sleep. And so Bhagavan took on he replicated each one completely. All their individual features, their character, their name, their form, whatever, whatever they had with them, their clothes and everything, he became everything. And Shukadev says, all these, that immortal one, became, as a literal illustration of the great truth that all this is Vishnu. Sarvam Vishnumayam. Because Vishnu means all pervading, all pervading. Himself, Krishna, himself the calves, himself the cowherd boys directing the calves, himself enacting various plays, and himself the toys and the sports and materials. Krishna, the Sarvatma, the soul of all beings, entered then into the cowherd settlement of Vraja. Vraja. And Vraja is not only that actual village, but is also, as one of the Mahatmas says, that means Gokul. Gokul means the village of the senses. And he said our cows are go, also means the senses. Also. And so our senses are the cows. And he says that therefore we should pay attention to who is the, I can't remember the Sanskrit word, the Hindi word, for the leader, the one who is leading the senses. Am I following that Bhagavan, who is the Govinda? Yeah. So Krishna had become each and every one of the boys and calves, and he entered into their respective houses. And because it was Sri Krishna himself that had become all of them, the mothers, the parents were just ecstatic when they saw their children. And even though they were way beyond nursing age, the mothers, would flow with milk and embrace their children, and just, they would all flow with tears, and their ecstasy was beyond what it's even normal was when their children would come home. And even the cows, the mother cows, when they returned from the pasture, they rushed into the cow sheds. And when they would see their calves, who were the multiformed Krishna, they, again, there was an intensity of their affection towards their calves. Why? Because the I-ness and my-ness was not there. Because they were meeting with the Supreme itself. So Krishna, in the form of their young ones, had the same affection towards their mothers as before, the only difference being that it was not prompted by Maya through a sense of possession. And that love kept growing and growing and growing because it was free of possessiveness. And for a whole year, this went on. Shri Krishna in the form of all them. And when there was only a few days left, 5 or 6 days left before the year was up, Balaram, Balaramji, he was noticing, why is this happening? And this same day, the elder cowherd men had taken the cows, off and up the mountains. But when the cows saw their calves down below in the valley, the cows took off like that. And it describes how when they run, their heads go back. And they were running down the hill so fast that, galloping. their heads turned to the hump and their tails raised and udders shedding milk, even as they were hurtling down to the valley where their calves were. And the cowherds who were trying to tend them were very irritated because they didn't know why this was happening. But when they finally came down slowly, when they saw their sons, they also were overwhelmed with joy and, embraced them. And feeling like youths themselves, out of that love, they departed with their eyes overflowing with tears. Now, when Balaramji was seeing all this, he thought, this is a little different, a little strange, right? Something wonderful is happening. And he said, this kind of love, which the inhabitants of Vraja used to have towards Krishna, the soul of all, Sarvatma, or Akilamatma here, they are now found to have towards all children in Vraja. What is the source of this mystery? He said, it must be my elder brother. He calls him my master here. Sorry, his younger brother, yeah. Or else this would not be affecting me. So, with his jnana chakshu, he then recognized that they were all Satchidananda Krishna. You know? They're not, he said, these aren't devas or even some rishis. These are him alone. He says, thou art shining alone as all these different entities. The Vedas too declare that thou art the manifold. So you should clarify this mystery, Sri Krishna. He says, tackled thus, the Lord explained the whole affair to him. So, and then 1 year after, which is, of course, Brahmaji, his, what is one moment to him is a whole year for us here. So, in a year's earth time, he came back to where he had picked up the cows and the cowherds. And what did he see? All the same, apparently the same boys and cowherds there, or cows, calves. Nothing missing. He said, wait a minute, I left the other ones in a cave. They're still there in deep sleep. And he couldn't understand. He was looking at all these multiples. And he couldn't arrive. See, using mind and intellect, he couldn't arrive at the truth of what this was. And then, as he was looking on, then suddenly, because, see, the mind was stunned, still. And then suddenly he sees from out of these individual forms, he sees the form of Vishnu arising out of each of the cowherd boys and the calves, and they were dressed just as as Lord Vishnu is described, the blue complexion, the crowns, the garlands all around him. It was dark as a rain cloud with the yellow silk clothes. Each one was holding conch, discus, mace, lotus, and decorated with, unguents. And so beautiful, with his eyes red tinged, and a beautiful smile on each one of these. So the individual forms disappeared, and all these Vishnu forms, all embodied beings from himself, Brahma, down to inanimate objects. Now I do this. Okay, we're adoring all these Vishnu forms with song and dance. And he saw the embodiment of yogic powers, all yogic powers, the Mahatattvas, the 24 categories of creation. He saw Maya and other Shaktis, Kala, time, Swabhav, Samskar, he saw Vasanas, Kama, Karma, all these in an embodied form, worshipping the Vishnu forms, each one of the forms. And each of these was seen as embodiments of Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, and full of inexhaustible, auspicious qualities, whose extent cannot even be glimpsed even through the Upanishads. Brahma thus saw them all simultaneously as Parabrahman, by whose light all this creation is manifested. And when he had this vision, then, his senses became completely stilled in the presence of that divine majesty. He was utterly confused how this was happening. And he closes his eyes then and he thinks, this Supreme Being is beyond all logical thought. He is infinite majesty, self-effulgent, blissful, beyond Prakriti, which can only be denoted negatively by the Vedas. How am I seeing that being as this multiplicity of forms? And then as he was even this was beyond his understanding, suddenly then he saw all those Vishnu forms merge back into one Krishna. One little Krishna with his flute in his waist and the rice ball in his hand. Oh, we saw that. The original Krishna. At that moment, Krishna, the original being, cast off the spell of Maya, and Brahmaji came back to his normal consciousness like a dead man revived. Rubbing his eyes, he looked out and saw the whole universe and himself again distinct. He saw himself as distinct from it all. And he looked around and he saw the beautiful Vrindavan, graced by the presence of Sri Krishna, where, when Sri Krishna was there, even animals that were normally enemies, antagonistic to each other, were at peace. What is that? No little child shall lead them. Biblical, too. Something about, anyway, it's the, what is it called? The king, animal. Anyway, there's another very famous thing where the little child amongst all these animals, and a little child shall lead them. So everything was living there peacefully, and it says here, there he saw the non-dual Brahman, Brahmadvayam, immeasurable consciousness in the assumed form of a cowherd boy, going about in search of his calves and companions with a ball of rice and condiments in his hand. And then Brahmaji got down from he was on his swan, and he got down and he fell at Sri Krishna's feet, touching his foreheads on Bhagavan's feet, and washing the feet of Sri Krishna with tears of joy welling up into his eyes, and he was prostrating again and again and again. This is very much like when Arjuna had the universal cosmic vision, right? And then he saw that this wasn't just his uncle or a charioteer, right? And then is this beautiful hymn of Brahmaji. So before I go into that, see, as explaining that Brahmaji represents our intellect. And so intellect gets in love with its own creation. Yeah, its own creation. Can get. And, but it doesn't realize, that even that power is coming from the Supreme. And so that is Brahmaji's realization here. So he says, I'll read parts of it. Salutation to thee, O worshipful one. Salutations to thee, the tender-footed son of the cowherd Nanda, who art of cloud-like complexion, who wearest a cloth bright like lightning, whose face is beautified by earrings of red beads and a plume of peacock feathers, who wears a wreath of wild flowers, and who sports with a staff, cow horn, and flute, and who carries a ball of rice in hand. That's a famous part of this. And so he says that far, far away is it therefore for anyone to know thee as the transcendent spirit of the nature of pure bliss consciousness. And he says that those who struggle on the path of jnana, now that doesn't mean, here he means path of jnana without devotion. Of course, their true nature is one and the same. Right? But he says, if they don't have this devotion to you and have their mind and senses, speech and action saturated with devotion to you, what they gain is only sweat, not the sweet, the sweat of effort, but they don't get the sweetness of that love. And those who strive only for knowledge without love or devotion. He says it's like beating just the husk of, what is that, the husk of the rice, right? Which is already empty. He said, but many are the yogis who have attained that supreme state by dedicating all their actions to thee through devotion and through the ninefold bhakti path. And he says that, I want to read this. It may be possible for some very pure souls under the instruction of one who has realized the Supreme Spirit as not different from the self within, to attain to your transcendent nature without any touch of the gunas of Prakriti, by means of the intuitive apprehension as subject-object-less existence. Right? He says, you have incarnated yourself in this world for the good of all. And here's a nice thing, he says, therefore, whoever lives with patiently undergoing, one doesn't have to say be full of, a lot of knowledge, but he says anyone who patiently undergoes the sufferings and enjoyments of life with equanimity of mind, of course, devoted to you, and depending on your grace alone. Depending without any shadow of a doubt on thy grace to operate and uplift him, such a person becomes eligible for mukti as one's heritage. That's so that surrender, to the grace of God. Saint Therese, I'll just mention one of my favorite Western saints. She said, Laura, I don't have the strength to be like some of these saints who do great austerities, tapas. She says, I can't do that. She said, but my way is to, she says, your arms will be my lift, my elevator. Your arms. Yeah? But she realized that meant to understand that everything that happens is by his will, and that only he can give me the strength to go through that if it's a difficult thing. That Anyway, you'd have to read her life. It's an embodiment of this surrender. It's amazing. Yeah. And in fact, interestingly, which is very appropriate to this story, she saw that even virtues that she felt she had none, but other people saw her virtues, right? But she had absolutely no sense of possession. She said, I'm, they're all his. They're all his. She felt she was even borrowing his love to love the others in her community, some who were very difficult, Yeah. Amazing. So, actually, from my point of view, she was extremely strong. But that, as even Guruji has said, that surrender takes the greatest strength. It's the greatest effort to surrender. So, having that patience and equanimity in the midst of the ups and downs, surrendering one's body, mind, actions to him, depending on his grace alone. So, and Brahmaji admits, that I wanted to demonstrate my power and enjoy the satisfaction of seeing my greatness, because he also has the power of, he has some Maya power, right? But he thought his was the greatest, right? Because he's the creator. But also when he had this vision, he also saw that there were Brahmajis in every cosmos. He wasn't the only Brahmaji, right? Yeah. Well, it's explained by Mahatmas there. Yeah. So. Oh, yes? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So he realized he wasn't the only Brahmaji, and not only that, but the power of Brahmaji is Bhagavan's power and Maya, and his Lord's Maya had deluded him, right? Because he couldn't see through it, right? So, and he glorifies the Lord, saying, from every pore, there are countless Brahmandas flowing out. And he says, please forgive me, because I am just like a mother doesn't, when the fetus in the womb kicks the mother doesn't have, she actually delights in that, because she knows then the baby is growing, right? And he said, please, I consider me, I am your child. And I am within you, right? Everything is within you. So forgive me my offense. And he refers to, in the beginning of creation, that particular creation, when he came out of the lotus from Narayana's navel. And he said, you did show this vast external universe as stretching outside, as also existing within you. On opening thy mouth to thy mother's view. He says, you are the one who dispels my ignorance and delusion. So there's so many things I could read here. So it is experienced as existing outside also, and also within you. Meaning that you, as if the world is projected outside. This Maya causes that. What else is this except your mysterious power of Maya? You were, he says in his experience now, he says, you were first the one, then you became the calves and the boys, the many. Then you were seen as the Narayana, the Vishnu in each of those forms, and now you remain alone as that measureless non-dual Brahman. What is this? What can this world be except your mystery? And so his stuti itself is an Upanishad, isn't it? Yeah. The one, as the Upanishads, right? The one in the beginning was the one alone. Then that one became many. And yet that is Vishnu, the all-pervading. And so this, coming back to this is the final vision. Final realization. All right. And there's even more. He says jnana can only be had through bhakti. So the final real jnana can only be had through bhakti. He says this, with the eye of Upanishadic knowledge, he overcomes this deceitful ocean of transmigratory existence, who with the eye of Upanishadic knowledge provided by an illumined guru is able to recognize the one universal soul manifesting in all as the spirit permeating oneself too. So, yeah. And again, he says, ignorance only projects this manifold universe, but at the dawn of knowledge, all the apparent separation, individuality disappears. And in fact, he says bondage and liberation are not real either. Those are all names or concepts arising out of ignorance as well. And he says, but in you, there is no change. Just as in the sun, there is neither night nor day, but only continuous luminosity. So, and I'll say one more, add one more thing. But without being graced with the blessing that comes on one by the adoration of thy lotus feet, no one can realize the above truth in all its glory. Then, I know this is a long one story, but this is one so profound. And then he begins to glorify the Vrajavasis, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, and I think these are the most fortunate people that can be. How fortunate are they? Nanda Baba and Yashodaji and all of the inhabitants who are loving that which is the non-dual Brahman, Paramatma, as their own child. Because he has become, that invisible has become incarnate to the senses. And they are able to imbibe the bliss through their senses. That is really... And he prays, Lord, please let me be in another life. Let me be a blade of grass of Vrindavan. Let me be even a cow. Or let me even be the dust under the feet of the cows and underneath that the inhabitants, the Vrajavasis, walk upon. He says, and someone said to me some time ago, have you seen that in Vrindavan? She sent me a video where maybe it's one day a year or whatever, that the men lie down on a narrow, the streets are narrow, very narrow, and they lie down, and then someone else drives the cows over them. So the cows can't go anywhere else. And they're running over the backs of a lot of the men. Long, a whole alleyway or whatever. And that's how they want the dust of the feet of the cows on them. It's really, I'll have to find that in my phone sometime and show you. It's very, very sweet. So, and he says, one automatically, here's again, the Bhagavad Dharma, one automatically becomes a natural sannyasin when one generates this kind of devotion for you, he says. Because even the Lord becomes a servant of that devotee who has that bhakti. Because the bhakti itself is what, again, as Guruji say, that it's finally bhakti that purifies the heart completely. And he says that jnana without bhakti is dry. And it's not the fulfillment of that jnana without the bhakti. So that's his beautiful stuti to Bhagavan Krishna. And then Brahmaji circumambulates him, goes around him, and the Lord brought out all the original, the original cows and calves and cowherd boys. And then when the cowherd boys, when they come out, they're not aware of any time passing. So they say to Shri Krishna, look, we haven't eaten one morsel since you've been out looking for the cows. We haven't eaten anything. So, in fact, they think, you've returned so soon. We haven't eaten even a ball of rice since you left. Krishna just laughs, and and he begins playing with them. And the skin of the python is still there, and the cowherd boys are playing with that skin, Then when they go home, they tell their families what had happened as if it had happened that very day. So then, the last thing here is that King Parikshit, he asks, how is it that the inhabitants of Raja felt the same love, for their, I'll read his. Oh, great one. How could the inhabitants of Raja feel greater love for Krishna, who was born of another person, than for the children born of their own body? And Shukadev replies that Sri Krishna is the self of all in all. And the self, capital S, is what we love the most. And we love everything else because of the self. So he says even children, homes, possessions, he says these are we love because we identify with our own self. So he said this latter, the experience of loving, other things, is due to superimposition and consequent identification between the self and the body. Because I identify myself as the body, therefore anything related in that way I consider dear to me. He says, the dearest thing is one's own Atma. One values everything in this universe of living and non-living beings only for the sake of the self. Know this Krishna to be the self of all selves, and he has embodied himself for the welfare of the whole world. For those who know Krishna, truly this whole universe of moving and unmoving entities is his form. There is nothing separate or excluded from him. He is the basis of all. And finally, whoever hears and recites these accounts of Krishna's play with the boys, the destruction of Aghasur, the picnic on the green grassy banks of the Yamuna, and the revelation of his spiritual essence, the hymn of Brahma will attain all the purposes of life. thus occupying themselves in this play through the 5th year of Balaramji and Sri Krishna. And a couple other just little points to could add is from these Mahatma's commentaries is that, Brahmaji also realized that, he isn't the source. What he creates from the blueprint that's given to him, right? So he says he's like the engineer, given the blueprint by the owner of all, right? And then he creates with what is given to him. And we could say our karmas, etc., the supreme will. So he's just like us. I mean, we're given our talents and knowledge and from other places, right? So the intellect, which Brahmaji represents, intellect is meant for its culmination, or its, how would I say, it has the capacity to discern, to discriminate, right? But then after that, its culmination is actually to disappear in the oneness, because it itself cannot comprehend that. So, and Brahmaji also, Sri Krishna, it said that he didn't like, the one thing he didn't like was that Brahmaji took away his friends. Right? Because Bhagavan's Leela here is to be with his friends, with his devotees and the cows and the calves. So, but he blessed Brahmaji then to go back and fulfill his dharma in devotion to him. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to sing.
You were saying there's some significance to the.
Oh, somewhere I read that that you see he's still enjoying this Leela of searching, of loss, of apparent loss of the, or confusion, we could even say, right? So that's, for us, as I understand what was said about that, is to, I think the more we understand that, or perceive that even our life is the Lord's Leela. Yeah. Huh? It's he's living as us. It's his Leela, and whatever is happening to... It's like in the Bala Mukunda story, where Bhagavan is sucking his own toe. You know that? I can't tell that right now, but it's so beautiful. Yeah. He's sucking his own toe. So all of it is enjoy. All existence, all experience is the enjoyment of the self for all of us. Because we're actually searching for ourself. Right? And I know someone who, I don't know if she's 100% realized, but she's somewhere, not around here. There are people here, but and she said, she teaches around the world, but she said something like this. She said, it is so, and she's talking about realization, she said, it is so, these aren't her exact words, glorious, that one would even go back into delusion for the joy of the search. I said, okay, you go ahead, okay? You go ahead. That was I didn't say that, but that was my response. I said, okay, fine. Once you get there. Right? But, isn't that, because it's Bhagavan playing hide and seek with himself, right? Yeah, yeah. And, okay, I'm remembering one more point, then I will stop. Jyotirmayanandaji. Okay, I brought my copy last time, which is so read that it's all falling apart. So I have brought this new one that I have. Actually, it has same book. But I would highly recommend it. She didn't see it, so yeah. He mentions also that in this Leela, that even Krishna, seeing the disappearance of the calves, right, and then the disappearance of the gopas, that is leading up to, you see, it's also representing our progress. It's like, do you know the Zen koan or koan, how you say that word? First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. That's exactly what's going on here. First, we see plurality, right? Everything's separate, everyone's separate. No, feeling, just that separation. First there is a mountain. It's just a mountain. It's just a tree. That's just a person. That's it. Then there is no mountain. When I guess the knowledge, or samadhi or whatever, when the individual forms disappear, just like for Brahmaji, the individual forms disappear, and finally, of course, there's the recognition that what is Brahman alone. So there is no mountain, then there is. But now we see the reality of what the forms are. Forms are Brahman, the one Brahman alone, not separate things. Okay. So, did you see the? Yeah. Okay. This may be it's a new tune that I found, so it may be a little hard to follow, but just. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Shri Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki jai. Shri Sadguru Nath Maharaj ki jai. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Krishna. Radhe Radhe Shyam. So I don't know about next week. Are we not?
I don't know. Thanksgiving starting Thursday.
I don't know if Arunaji, is she sending anything?
I asked her this morning, and she said if Swamiji didn't tell you anything, otherwise then class is there. So I said,
Yeah, right. Okay.